Hello and welcome to ThomasGeigerCar. Today with the Volkswagen ID.5. Yes, you got me right. Volkswagen is quickly expanding its electrical lineup and adding an ID.5 to the ID.3 and ID.4. The first electric SUV coupe out of Wolfsburg. A car that was desperately missing in the traditional lineup. Now at the Charger, it is here. If you want to know what to expect from the intelligent alternative to a BMW X4 or a Mercedes GLC coupe, join me in my test drive and I'll tell you more about it. Driving the ID.5 is a very common experience because the car feels like every other Volkswagen ID model. Same as an ID.3 or an ID.4. But here we're sitting in the ID.5 GTX, and GTX is the new sports badge, something like the GTI for the Generation E. And that does not only mean the car has more power than the standard ID.5s, no, it also has a bit of a sportier, more aggressive, more dynamic setup and a new drive function, a new assistant system. It's called Drive Dynamic Manager, that gives you a wider range of capabilities, making the car a bit more aggressive in the curves if you really want that to. Battery size is always the same, 77 kilowatt hours, meaning a range of 490 up to 520 kilometers in the European WLTP cycle. And there are three motor variants for the beginning. Base model has 174 horsepower. The mid-line model has 204 horsepower. And the GTX has 299 horsepower, giving you an acceleration from 0 to 100 in 6.3 seconds. Compared to the a little bit above 10 seconds for the least powerful model. Top speed is limited to 160 as with all the ID models, but the GTX is a bit faster and is allowed to go 180. Still slower than any conventional Volkswagen Golf, for example. But on the electric avenue, 180 kilometers per hour for a compact SUV, already pretty an achievement. While driving the car on the Autobahn or on a wide and open highway, it doesn't make much of a difference if you drive a standard ID.5 or the GTX, because the acceleration is done once in a while and top speed is governed anyhow, so you don't feel much of a difference. But on a twisted mountain road like that, the car really feels a bit more agile, and somehow the sporty feeling and the sporty approach fits pretty well to the coupe style of the ID.5. So yes, it's the most expensive version, but it's also the version that is offering the most fun to drive. So if I had to choose, I would go for the GTX. The ID.5 does not only mark the rising of elegance and aesthetics in Volkswagen's electric family, no, it also marks the next generation electronics, because the ID.5 is the first ID model with the software release 3.0 or later on even 3.1. This car is equipped with the newest software setup from the factory on, while all the other cars that are already delivered have to be updated either at the dealership or later on over the air in quite a long procedure. Here, all the new software is already on board and giving you a big advantage. Charging times have been shortened because charging power has been increased and battery logistics are better than before. B, the driver assistance systems got even smarter. You now can store, for example, certain maneuvers around your house, and the automated parking assist is moving the vehicle by its own, for example, into your garage. The Lane change assist and navigation is using swarm intelligence from the cars around you. And third, the voice recognition got much better. It's even more natural to talk to your car now. It understands the meaning of what you're saying. If you say I'm cold, it will increase temperature. If you're saying I'm hungry, it will look for food places along your way. So, giving you a better looking car that is even smarter. Another reason for going for the ID.5 instead of taking an ID.4 and going back to the dealership or using the over-the-air update and having the vehicle sit down for hours and hours to install the new software. Something that hasn't changed by now, even with the new software, is the main way of operating the car. I know lots of people like it if there's no button anymore, and Tesla has led the way, but I still have my problems, especially with the adaptation of the temperature and the volume for the infotainment system. It's okay once it's daylight, but in the night when everything is dark and the sensor bar down here is not lit up, it's really hard to figure out how to make it warmer, how to make it colder, how to increase the volume or to decrease it. Another reason for using the updated and upgraded voice recognition, because if you talk to your car, you don't have to touch it anymore. The design language is pretty familiar. It is a proud member of the ID family, and the technology isn't new as well, because the car is based on the MEB architecture. But the shape and the silhouette is pretty new, identically with the ID.4 at the front until the front doors. The rear is new, it's elegant, and it's stylish and sporty. The car is just a tiny bit longer than the ID.4, but it's 5 centimeters lower. The question is there enough room in the back seat under the lower roof? Something we're gonna figure out right now. Yep, we're sitting in the back of the ID.5. And yes, there is not much difference to the ID.4. It is roomier than a Tiguan, for example, due to the long wheelbase, and the lower roofline doesn't affect your comfort at all. It's just 1.5 centimeters difference in the interior. And you have to have a really high head or a fancy hairdress if you have to feel this difference. Moving from the rear seat to the trunk, we realize that space is also not compromised when it comes to your luggage. 549 liter underneath the cover. It's exactly the same as you have in the ID.4. Only when you fold down the seats and load roof high, you lose a bit, but hey, it's a coupe, not a cargo van. Thanks for joining me on that first drive with the new Volkswagen ID.5 here in the sporty GTX version, a car that gives a really interesting addition to the electric lineup out of Wolfsburg. Okay, SUV coupes aren't a sensation anymore, selling like hotcake in the old world and in the new world. But this car gives a bit of more emotion to the electric lineup. It gives more elegance and even more efficiency. Due to the lower drag coefficient, this car just goes a little bit further than the identical ID.4. But beauty comes with a price. With a starting price of 46,500 euros in Germany, this car is a little less than 2,000 euros more expensive than the standard ID.4. Lots of money for a little looks on the one hand. On the other hand, if you compare it to the overall price, it's just a tiny premium that you should easily afford.